Welcome to this episode of the Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. This is Anil Patel, founder and CEO of Hotwire Commerce. In this podcast, we discuss e-commerce, omnichannel technology, pre-order management, brick-and-mortar operations, retail culture, innovation, and how all these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Join us to hear the brightest minds in the retail industry share their experiences and thoughts on the most relevant topics today. Welcome everybody to Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. Today we have with us Jenni Homer. She's Director of Retail and eCommerce at Nanso Group. Welcome, Jenni. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing fine. I'm here in wintry Finland and it's sweater season for us, as you can see. But really nice to be here talking to you.
Awesome. Now this is great because I coming from Indian background in India from warm weather. For me, that is very cold, and it is. I can understand how cold it is. Thankfully, I'm in Florida these days, so I'm having a good temperature to work with. Yeah, awesome. Cool. So, Jenni, this is great. I'm really happy to have you today with us for this Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast. And, in our conversations earlier, we've been talking that you have done so much, starting from different big name retailers and growing up and to this point where you are heading the retail and e-com at Nanso Group. I'm so excited about knowing about your journey, how you got started, and what are your steps from where you started to reach this point. It definitely, I'm sure there'll be a lot of learnings for all of us.
Oh, I don't know about that. Let's see. So I guess I can walk you through the career journey in some way. And first of all, I've always wanted to work in retail. And I've always wanted to work with fashion or clothing or some such thing. And I studied fashion marketing in the UK. I lived there for quite a long time. And during my studies, I worked in a lot of different physical retail stores as a sales assistant, just to finance my studies and such. I worked at Mango and H&M and Urban Outfitters and Aldo, for example. But then my first sort of proper job, if you would say, or office job, was at Levi's in Brussels, in the retail marketing department. And that was a very interesting place to be, for sure. But the first sort of longer stint where I guess I feel like I got to lead my own team and kind of where my career started really was in a high street imports company in the UK. So then I was visiting factories in Turkey, for example, and supplying various high street labels in the UK. So it was basically imports. And I guess I now think that it was actually quite far from the consumer in a way. And I think with every job after that, I've always moved closer to the consumer. So after some years in the UK, I moved back to Finland and I started working at Esprit. A company which unfortunately isn't around anymore as such, but it was still a huge global company when I was working there. And I worked for their wholesale team in the Nordics for, I think, in total 10 years, so quite a long time. Obviously, various roles during that time, a lot to do with merchandising, assortment planning, sales leads, but then also just the retail operations of franchise partners. So there I was already starting to spend a lot of time also with the end consumer and training the teams in the retail stores, and also starting to understand first omnichannel things because Esprit was doing a lot of those things already back then. And so after that, I moved to my current position about 6 years ago. So no longer working for a global brand, but now for a much smaller domestic brand. And I'm sure probably nobody in the audience will have ever heard of Nanso. I'm hoping you will, though, in the coming years, but let's see how that goes. So Nanso is a bit of a legacy brand here in Finland. It has over 100 years of history, is very, very well known. And it has done this really big turnaround in the last few years. It had maybe grown a little bit old-fashioned and had more focus on production, and now it's moved more towards D2C and being a brand house. And luckily, they had already identified that D2C would be the driver for the business in the future. And so when I started, B2B was still kind of the main driver, but now our D2C business is around 75% of the whole turnover. And so now I really enjoy being so close to the consumer, both online and offline. So we have 25 physical retail stores, all in Finland. And then we have one ecom store. And now we're working finally on launching our international ecom store next spring. So hopefully then, bit by bit, other people will start to hear about us as well. But yeah, I guess for every new role that I've taken on, it's always brought something really new. I feel like I've never moved to do the same job in a different place, but it's always been a new position, and especially moving closer to the consumer, the customer. And I've really enjoyed that, and really enjoy everything that has to do with developing something, either a new business area or something that needs kind of turning around. And so even with the difficult times of the pandemic and COVID in 2020, we've been able to more than double the turnover of our retail stores, and also grow our ecom business sixfold from what it was. So we've had some really good years actually now, and luckily we've been able to do some pretty interesting things, hopefully, that we'll move on to discuss.
Awesome. Now, this is really good. Jenny, I'll first start with something that I really liked about is like, you're working with a brand that has a lot of legacy, and they've been there for like 100 years. And uh, so they have a really good, strong understanding of Finnish culture, the people, the customer, and then what they like. And like you said, you are, modernizing the business with like, e-com and D2C. So getting very closer to the customer, which means now the feedback loop is even better. And so, it's like 100 years long time. Generations have changed, people have changed. So I think having D2C would be very helpful to get closer to customers, so we can get better understanding of the customer, right? Because like now you're directly interacting, and the people 100 years ago, or maybe like 30 years ago, were very different than what we have today. So I mean, this is like a big step forward, and this decision of going more D2C is for sure very helpful in the growth. So whatever you learn, like you already have like 25 stores, which is great, and now getting started ecom in internationally. And as you go international ecom, probably you'll start opening stores in those other countries as well. So I think there's a lot of potential, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting that you say like 100 years of legacy, because I think one of the, like, yeah, it's great to have this history, but it also comes with a lot of pressure, because people kind of know it, and you have to kind of take care not to change it too much, but to make it modern again and relevant. And one of the things that we also kind of struggled with at some point when we started getting new customers and really started growing was that we kind of started realizing that, do we actually know these new customers? Like, who are they? Because they're probably not like the old customers who've been there for, well, maybe not quite 100 years, but but a long time. And that's where the D2C came in as such an important provider of data, um, about who our new consumers are, and how maybe they differ from the sort of legacy consumers, let's call them. Um,
Uh, yeah, and also, very important why I think there's a strength in Nanso Group, because the newer generations, they really wants to go back to their roots. They really want to connect. They respect. They like this legacy and those brands. And there are a lot of brands that I have seen that used to be big back in the day, then they kind of slowed down and were not as much talked about, and then now they're picking up. So there are like many, like definitely in cars and motorcycles, because my interest in there, I've seen a lot of those come up. And so similarly, I'm sure there is a lot in fashion also going on. So there's advantage. So like, now I want to come back to one other thing is you started from like working in the college at the retail stores, and then went through like a lot of like imports, and then working with wholesale and all these things. So you've done like a lot of almost every department in the company you worked with now in a retail or fashion business, right? And over the years, like so many years, like how many years are we talking about, like 15 years or something?
Oh, yeah, no, it's over 20 for sure.
Yeah. So like, there's one other thing, like now that you know the newer generation much better, I have a question, like, uh, there's this big thing where the newer generation wants everything quick, and the effort that goes into trying to get something also is being questioned a lot. People coming from the background where we will have to work 30 years to get to a certain point. If uh, if a person comes in and wants the same thing in like 3 or 5 years time frame, then I kind of like don't understand how that works. So tell me about your experiences. Like, how are you seeing this world? Like, you must have your friends, must have children. You must have like there are people around you. How do you compare your all this real life experiences all these years, and how the newer generation is dealing with it, and how what their expectations are?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Well, like not to generalize too much, but actually, I think what you said that younger generations want things quickly. I actually think that many older generations also people do get used to new tools, and what ecom obviously has made is suddenly the whole world is available to you, or certainly a whole bunch of products that weren't available before. So um, I guess yes, maybe you have to compete with quick deliveries and things like that. Certainly, if I look at the Nanso business and just our what we're doing now in our domestic market, all omnichannel capabilities and such, meaning that you can look up whether your store next to you has some product that you're interested in. You can go and pick it up straight away. You can get it ordered to a store if they don't have it in, and things like this. But what we find is that it's not just the young people, it's everybody, and people's expectations have been raised in a way because we've made it possible. And of course, now we have to work to also meet those expectations and probably find new ways as well of approaching those subjects.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And also, like, in more recent years, like 2 or 3 years, like more so in like last 2 years, coming in of all these AI tools have even more enhanced the capabilities of getting work done in much less time, much less energy. So, have you been experiencing these new AI tools? And if you are, then tell us about your initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, we have been doing some interesting AI things, and maybe use AI tools using like in your everyday working life. I can see that people are definitely starting to use ChatGPT and tools like this to um, maybe bounce ideas off, or if you want to do a customer survey, maybe instead of like sitting down yourself writing word for word, you'll use ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to ask my customers about, I don't know, our loyalty program. What kind of questions should I ask? And obviously, ChatGPT will just give you an endless list of ideas, and then you can kind of pick from there, or it can help you structure things. And so it does save time, and especially kind of used as a companion to maybe run things by. If you're feeling a bit stuck, maybe yourself, like where should I start? Then it's a great tool. But then maybe more complex AI, we've done a lot of work with customer data in order to really understand. Like I said, we had this kind of kind of epiphany at some point that, okay, we've got a lot of new customers, but do we really know who they are, and are we really catering for them, and which customer segment is the one growing? And there we did some really interesting things with our partner who helps us on our ecom, and they fed all the data that we had, and we had a lot of data. And of course, we used it for very tactical things like finding the segment of somebody who, I don't know, didn't purchase a sweater yet, and we can send them a discount code. But it didn't really, it was too much data almost for us to understand who are the kind of segments that arise from this data. And so with the help of AI and machine learning, they were able to feed all the data to AI and tell it to kind of like look at all these data points with over 20 different metrics, and tell us like, where can you see groups of people who are behaving similarly, and what are the defining characteristics of these people, and that really helped us understand who our most important customers are today, and also how they differ, and it was quite interesting to see that it's not just one consumer, and we really need to think about at least sort of 4 main consumers when we're planning almost anything nowadays. And I don't think we could have done that without AI, because it would just been too much data to do sort of like, you couldn't do that in an Excel or anything like that. So that was really, really interesting. And then that has led to a lot of different projects, like product suggestions and things like this, that obviously also then use AI in the tools behind that. I kind of almost forget what your question was now. I feel like I just rambled on.
That's okay. Doesn't matter actually. The information you have provided is so valuable that what I asked, for sure it is relevant, and you answered what I said, what I asked at the same time. Yeah. So really, I see that you when you started, you talked about how GPT can be your companion, which is very important, because when I started using ChatGPT initially, and I felt that this is a stupid tool, and I failed at it, because I thought, man, AI has come and it will do my job. So I was trying to give it to things to do and hope that it will write code for me, or review the code for me and things like that. And I failed. For me, it didn't work, and I rejected that tool initially. That no, this is a hype like every other hype we have had in the last 20 years, and in 6 months or so, people will simply forget. That's how I was in the beginning, and then with time, because people who used it successfully, they were using it successfully when they mentioned in different conversation, like you did right now. I realized that, okay, my expectations are wrong. ChatGPT is not here to do my work. It's here to be I can have GPT with me, and I can brainstorm with it. I can do things something that otherwise I would go talk to my colleague, and so that even though that colleague may not know a whole lot of story, may not do my work, but if I throw some ideas and we discuss, and then when I come back and at my desk and work, I have new ideas to work with, and I solved the problem without that person, when even though that person didn't give me the solution, but I still solved the problem. So that brainstorming, so like the role of GPT in our lives as a brainstorming partner is just amazing. It opened up so many new opportunities for me. So yeah, I'm excited that at least this is where you also see value in ChatGPT, actually, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and but you're right in the sense that like you have to, I guess, kind of check your own expectations in a way, and also like learn to use it, like learn how to prompt it for things, and I think that isn't easy in the beginning. And I think sometimes it's a bit like, well, what do you use it for? But I think like, yeah, brainstorming whenever you're stuck with something, or even if you're kind of like, oh, I need to come up with ideas for this meeting next week. and you kind of feel like, oh, just can't think of anything, then go and ask ChatGPT and just tell, hey, I have a meeting about this subject next week. Can you help me think of some ideas? And it will give you loads, and then maybe that will get you started on your own ideas. So it's not fail proof, but it is a good place to start.
Yeah, in fact, in our lives, I don't know how much you've done, but something that definitely we do a lot in programming. I'm from engineering background, so we do a lot in programming. Is we'll have a junior developer. We'll tell that junior developer, hey, this is what we want to do. Go write a code for me for getting this certain thing done, or some logic implemented. They'll go implement it. We know that whatever they write is not going to be useful, but they just do whatever and bring it to you, and then that gives you a starting point, and now you can very quickly criticize it critique it, and get it to the position, get what you want out of it. So I think GPT, like, is a really good tool of that kind of thing, where you tell him, like, go do this, and whatever GPT does, don't expect that it will solve the problem exactly the way you want it to be solved, but it will do something, and then that will get the conversation started. And once the conversation starts, it can, it's up to us to take it from there and get what we want. So yeah, this is amazing, actually. So this is like, I'm really happy that I know about your experiences, because I felt like idiot first time, and then when I got value out of it, I'm still questioning myself, that am I getting the real value out of it or not? Or am I being not smart enough about how these tools can be used? So knowing that you are doing similar thing makes me happier. So thanks for sharing your experience there.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. And I guess like ChatGPT, in a way, it almost seems like it's a contender for Google in a way, because I think what we used to do is always, oh, I'll just Google it to find any kind of information. But now you kind of, in a more conversational way, just ask ChatGPT, and it will give you kind of a more maybe rounded answer than that you don't have to sift through yourself, through like Google results or such. So I think like the younger generations growing up with ChatGPT as a just normal thing that always existed, it's probably liable to at least take away some from old school Googling.
Yeah, that's true. Something like that. And I think it's been talked about a lot, and I think even Google realizes this, and they are trying to pivot into certain directions. Then the next thing that you brought up was, like, use of AI for analyzing data and coming up with some ideas. And so this is like interesting. What you said is that when you were getting into the market and wanted to know more about your customers, especially the newer customers that you are acquiring, new age customers, and particularly your strategy to go D2C helped. But at that point, you have so much data, and all this data about customer, analyzing it and getting something meaningful insights that you can act upon is hard. And I'm really happy to know. I'm really excited to know more about what you've done there, about data. What kind of data? How to analyze all these things? I don't know what you can tell me, but whatever you can tell me a little bit more, something that is more actionable, because it's important. My friends would tell me, no, your AI can analyze all these data. But the question is, like, what data? Okay, even if I have data, what exactly do I want to ask AI to do, and all that? So tell us about, like, what could we do? What kind of data we should be collecting, and what can we do with that data?
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, what kind of data should you be collecting? I always say that, like, anything you can get, basically. Start with that, Like, sometimes we try and make things too complicated and think that, oh, it's got to be perfect before I can do anything. But that's just not the case. Like, if you have some data, and of course, get started with that. We were lucky enough in 2019, and I say lucky because it was just before COVID. We moved onto Shopify as a platform for all our D2C business. So we started gathering data there, and the more the ecom side grew, the more data points we obviously acquired from people who shopped online. In the retail store, we're also running on Shopify POS, so of course we get data from there as well, but it's a little bit less than what you get on ecom. This is probably quite normal. So and there's of course all kinds of customer behavior metrics, how often people buy, average order values, what kind of products they buy, basically all the little data points that that you can get. And what we did with the segmentation or profiling with the use of AI is kind of understand all of these, which things are the most important things, and especially maybe how these customers differ. But like with any data, it doesn't tell you everything. So one of the key things that I think, if you're really working in a customer centric way, is that you need to understand the motivation behind the purchasing. So we were still kind of left with a lot of data in a way, a lot of facts, but we did do then a lot more research and like questionnaires and just talking to our customers from these specific segments to understand what drove them to buy from us. Like, so what were the key kind of values behind it, and the real motivational factors. And then that's interesting when you have the hard data and you start to understand, okay, this customer segment is, for example, motivated by trendiness or newness. You start to think, okay, well, so what can I do with that information? Well, first of all, you can maybe change the main messages in your communication, so your email marketing or online targeting marketing, and you can try and use a more kind of newness highlighting approach and tone of voice. And for sure, any email that you send to them, you make sure that you have some new products included, or highlight to them that, hey, this is the collection, it's just out, you need to see this. And then you might have another customer segment group, or in our case we did, who's much more interested in practicalities and quality and things like that in a product. They're not maybe so interested in trends, but they're interested in, will this work for me, and will it last a long time, and is it value for money? And so then you kind of think, okay, well, even if I'm sending them the same basic message about a campaign or whatever news that's going on, I can try and build in some of those practicalities. And for example, hey, the winter has started, it's getting colder, these qualities, these fabrics are great for this time of year, and this is how you take care of them, and they will last a long time. So you're effectively probably promoting even the same products or the same product groups, but you're choosing to kind of communicate about the things that this customer group has told you that makes them want to buy, if that makes sense. So I think it's important to like fulfill the data with also these more kind of more understanding into the behavior of why do they, okay, we know that this is how they behave, but why do they do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is interesting. Like, because data, like you said, can give us the facts that what exactly is happening today. But why is it happening is an important topic. Because once we know why customer is doing what they are doing, then we have the clear understanding of like how to message, what we need to talk, because so that we can talk to their why, and then hopefully the customers will be able to find what they want and buy from us. This is interesting, and what you said is another important part is like you said, you got lucky in the sense that the timing was perfect, where you just moved to ecom, your ecom on Shopify, and then stores, point of sale systems also on Shopify, which helped you to get data in a much more streamlined way, because now Shopify is your source of truth, and it is where you are getting all the data, some little bit more data in ecom, because we can clearly capture their buying pattern, like from which page to which page, their whole journey, their customer journey on the website, and also your email campaigns and how they're responding But stores, you can link your online customers with your in-store purchase and all that. That is very helpful, right? Because now you know who is coming to the store and what is their behavior from e-com to the store, and that way you can figure out like what kind of merchandise, what kind of collection I want to have at this store because what customers are coming. And now that you have clear understanding of motivation, it even more further helps because so now my question is like you go research onto motivation, and then also you mentioned that for asking survey questions you use GPT. So help me understand this. You get the data, analyze it, and then come up to understand why, to understand the motivation, you use survey and all those, and where you again use take help of GPT. Now when the customers are coming in the store, are you also in certain way having your associates, the store associates, also interact with the customers and figure out their why and then have a conversation and help them with the buying process? And in that whole process, how are you capturing data and how are you using AI? Is there anything happening there?
Yeah, that was many questions in one. Yeah. So let me try and break it down. Yeah. So absolutely, of course, the store personnel, first of all, are an intrinsic part in having a real good consumer experience in an omnichannel way. And I think one of the first things we have had to do, and we're still working with it, I would say it never stops, is to train people in the stores not to see ecom as a kind of an enemy, but more as a thing that should be promoted, because our customers, they are looking at things online, they're looking to see whether maybe a store has it, and then they'll come into the store. Many of them already know what they want to buy or what they want to try on at least. And of course, we have a lot of loyal customers, and they gladly give us information about themselves, and the store personnel can see this. So of course they can see what they bought last time, what kind of things they've been putting into their cart, and use that information. But the use of AI, so maybe AI isn't used so much in the physical store because I guess it isn't present in the shopping situation itself, but the segmentation is a tool that we use. So our store personnel, we actually did this trial last spring, since we'd done this segmentation work on all the data that we had, that we asked our store personnel to themselves come up without telling them about the data, without giving the results from the data. Just ask them like, what are the most important customers in your store? And everybody around Finland, they go, oh, our customers are so different than anywhere else. But they weren't. In the end, they came up with nearly identical profiles of the typical customers and the most important customers. And the interesting thing was when we consolidated all these kind of their experiences about our customers, it matched the data study that we had done, the segmentation work with AI. It matched it perfectly. And it matched the motivations that our customers had told us as well. So of course, I think that's another good thing, that your store personnel, they do know so much. They have so much information. It would be a shame not to use it. And they have so much knowledge about how to sell to these specific people as well. So they were able then to kind of complete the picture, if you will, with things like, well, what are the typical phrases that people use? What are the typical mannerisms? How about their budget? Like, what kind of motivation do they come to the store with? But also, how do they like to be treated in the store? Do they want a lot of service, or do they want to be left alone to browse? And it was really interesting to see how these different segments had really kind of personalities when we kind of consolidated all this information. And of course, if you then turn that into a tool, you can start teaching also new people, new personnel, new sales assistants, and of course, people who with more experience, that how to recognize these customers when they walk through the door. And so then if you're like, okay, well, this is how you recognize maybe the trendy customer who's into the newness and such. Well, make sure you bring them to this part of the store, because this is where we showcase all the newest things right now. And don't steer them to this side where there's sort of more last season's models or more basic things. And of course, then the store personnel as well starts to realize that, okay, they can really increase their professionalism with these tools, and they can really start to think about these things, and they can challenge themselves into kind of identifying what customer is that, and and she did exactly what we thought she would do, or so you can use it as a really good training tool as well. I'd like to say we've done it all, but we're in the middle of it. We're working on that, because this is quite recent. But it's very nice to see how enthusiastic people are when they feel like, okay, wow, this is a good tool that we can really do something with.
Awesome, awesome. Jenny, you know what? Uh, I know you may not have listened to all the podcast I have done, but this is something I can tell you. I have talked to many people in leadership position in retailing, and this is something I want to ask, even though I did not ask it directly, but the answer was the same. You gave me the same answer. Is that about, like, customer experience and how your associates give good quality service to your customers in the store, because, like, fashion retailing is all about the experience that you give. The value is in the experience that you deliver to the customer in the store or online. I have this question, or we always come discuss this topic in all these podcasts. It's been consistently, I've been getting different answers. In what is interesting is that there have been many different answers, and they all are correct. Uh, and what you gave me, even though essence is the same, how we approach it, how we get to it, and how the experience is delivered. All these companies, when they say, like, when you say our company, Nanso Group, delivers the experience which is different, or it's like, it clearly identifies the company or the brand representation. I have talked to many different people from different brands in leadership people in different brands. I can say for sure, yes, their experiences are different, because at the end of the day, it is about customer, yes. Also, how you deliver is different. I'm so excited, so happy that whatever I asked you, the response I got. I would have not phrased it properly in a question to get this response, but the response was really good, really good. I'm going to, yeah, it is actually a lot of information you are given. I'm going to write it up and maybe put it in a blog or something like that. This is important. The details that you have provided in your response is amazing. I'm not even going to try to repeat them here for, because I'm going to make mistakes there. But this is amazing. Thank you very much for the, information that you have provided in that response. It's amazing. I'm really happy. I feel privileged that I had the opportunity to talk to you about this topic. So yeah, so this is one thing. What you said is, in the stores, in the physical retail, it's a common experience that the associates in the store, because they have sales targets, stores has its own sales targets. They definitely, we all have to meet our revenue targets. Also in that process, they very naturally consider ecom as a competitor. Again, the value you have delivered is that because we can provide you with so much of data, so the ecom is not only your competitor, it's not your competitor at all. Also, it's helping you achieve better results in the store, because the data you're getting is much more enriched data from ecom. The other thing is, the challenge that we see is that because the customers are, because associates see it as a competitor, the question is, how do you reward them? How do you allocate your online sales to these stores? How do you, manage all that? Can you tell us a little bit about like how do you help stores achieve their sales targets, at the same time not see ecom as a competitor?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And yeah, we don't directly allocate like a percentage of sales. I know some brands do that. We don't do that, but we have sort of tried to think of both ways how to get people who shop online into our stores, and then also people who mostly shop in stores also to online, for a number of different reasons. And of course, at the heart of it is the customer centricity. Because if the customer is happy at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter where they make their purchase, then they will come back. But our store staff can see that we're able to use the data of the online customers, for example, to target them with specific advertisements about the stores. So if we see that there's an area where we have a store and there's a lot of online shopping happening, then we can also try and in that region just advertise that, did you know that this is your closest store? Did you know that we have a store here? And of course, we can think of maybe events in the store, VIP evenings, where we invite kind of only the best online shoppers and give them some benefit or something. So the stores do see that we're also using all the data to drive people and revenue to their stores. And I guess one important thing there is what as well is to teach them how to use the ecom capabilities, in order to look, okay, if they've run out of something, does the ecom store still have it in stock? Does the store in the next town have it in stock? Can they perhaps help the customer? Because at the end of the day, they benefit from the customer being happy and the customer going home, wow, I'm so happy that I got the product I was after, even if it wasn't from their store. And then another reason is that we spend a lot of time teaching our store staff to understand a little bit about lifetime value. And we show them figures of how important it is to get customers into an omnichannel mode, because we can see that the lifetime value increases so much. And the way that we've kind of spun it to make it sort of understandable or practical enough is to kind of show them that if there are hard times, if there are, like, for example, we hate February, okay? Like in our line of business, February is awful. It's dead. It's so quiet. But if you have enough of loyal customers that you're able to communicate with, that you can reach, they're the ones who are going to kind of get you through the quiet times. And so that's what we're trying to spin, that look at these stores who have this many loyal customers and this many ecom customers visiting now and then. They kind of can sustain a level of turnover even in quiet times that everybody would like to reach. So yeah, we are trying to work it both ways and think. And if anybody has any good ideas, they are all very welcome. You can absolutely send me more.
Awesome, Jenni. Really, thank you very much for, again, really, really, really good answer, information. It's like you are so good at articulating, giving us the details, the steps. I'm sure the people who work with you really enjoy working with you, because the information, the way you provide is amazing. So thank you very much for helping us know so much about how to use AI, how to use GPT, and also at the same time, very important question that you helped us get answered is like how to use this data that we have, and grow in meeting our sales revenue targets, and at the same time, like, doing best for our customer. So this is great. Thank you very much. I really would love to keep having this conversation with you, but at the same time, we had to watch our, see how the clock is doing, and we had to bring it to the end. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm really happy. Yeah. And so before we leave, just one last thing. Is there any real takeaways that you think, some like one, two, or three key takeaways that you would like me to take home from this from you to for our audience?
Yeah, yeah. No, I guess and things that sometimes we get asked is kind of like, well, it seems like you've done so much with this data, especially like how did you get started? And I kind of go back to the things again, like, well, we'll start where you can. Of course, it helps if you have a platform like Shopify or something like that where you can access the data. But most people probably have a Meta account. Google Analytics provides you with a lot of data already. And then try and get to know your customer and try and think of then for your team, what are the practical uses of that data and your learnings there, and really put it into is it a newsletter, or is it, I don't know, product development also, marketing, quite basic things, but just like, what could it mean? What could you actually in practice do with these things, and why? And I think if you get people motivated on that why, and a little bit interested in following the data and seeing how it evolves, then the rest will kind of happen.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us today, and we appreciate your time. And I'm sure our audience is going to love the conversation we had, the information you have provided. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or a fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is presented by Hotworks Commerce.